This morning on Morning Joe, John Meacham, continuing the great tradition of Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris and some of the now never Trumpers who worked in the administration, cast the prospect of Donald Trump winning and the what it would say about anyone who would vote for Donald Trump in terms that some might call apocalyptic. Please play number one.
That's exactly it. You know, Vice President Harris isn't on trial here in the same way President Biden wasn't on trial when he was running. We are. The American people are on trial. And if we choose, if a sufficient number of us in a sufficient number of states choose to ignore the evidence that, as the Bible says, those with eyes to see and ears to hear can detect, then there's no, we have no excuse. We might have an explanation, which is that for a series of reasons, people are not holding the Republican Party and the nominee of that party to rational account. And I think that this is a test of citizenship in a way that certainly you'd have to go back, I think, to both the 19th century and the civil rights era to find anything equivalent. I think Gene's exactly right in that the conventional media conversation just isn't commensurate to, and hasn't been for a long time, to this election. This is not Bob Dole and George Mitchell duking it out with Bob Novak. You know, it's just, that's like talking about the Peloponnesian War, right? This just isn't that. And, you know, we can lament it, and we should, but what we really have to do, I think, is insist that if you believe in what you say you believe, and everybody we know, Willie, everybody we know believes that they're constitutionalists, they're Americans, they...
What kind of world does he live in? Doesn't he recognize that different people have different hero systems? Everybody we know thinks he's a constitutionalist. That's insane. Right? The Constitution is a product of a particular people. Constitution should not be a death warrant.
They believe in the country. Well, if you believe that, if that's...
They believe in the country. They believe in the country in what respect? Right? The country's not going to levitate. Right? The country has good points and bad points. It has strengths and weaknesses. Right? Believe in the country? What kind of mealy-mouthed nonsense is this?
That's what you say you believe. Patriotism is not nationalism.
Yes. Patriotism appeals to intellectuals more than nationalism. So from this guy's perspective, if you're a nationalist, you're a bad bloke. You're a bad person. But nationalism is the most powerful political force operating in the world for the past 250 years. And he thinks that if you are susceptible to the tug of nationalism, that you are inferior to people like him who are all about the ideas and the Constitution.
And Trump is a nationalist. Nationalism is loyalty to your own kind, right? To people who look like you, who are exactly like you.
Yes, nationalism is loyalty to your extended family. It is a normal, natural, and usually a healthy inclination. And only a tiny percentage of the population is ever going to be excited about ideas such as patriotism.
Patriotism is allegiance to an idea. The idea that, as Thomas Jefferson articulated it in the Constitution.
Right. He thinks if you're a good person, your primary allegiance is to an idea as articulated by Thomas Jefferson. Right. This reminds me, growing up, the son of a Christian evangelist and theologian who thought the most important thing in life was loyalty to the key evangelical Christian ideas. Right? I think the most important thing in life is how you behave and what kind of family and community you build.
Constitution has tried to actuate it, and however imperfectly, we've managed to realize just a little bit more through the years. And that's been the conversation in America. And
that's the part of the conversation that he loves and looks up to, right? There have been all sorts of other political conversations going on in this country that are far more nationalist and racial and religious than what he's talking about here.
Could take a radical, risky, and possibly irreversible turn if we don't pay attention.
Some of you might find he was just speaking from the heart. But boy, is that characterization of Donald Trump and Donald Trump supporters, is that going to help us get through this?
No, of course not.
I find it to be, every time I've watched it 3 times now, and every time I watch it, I wonder of all the things embedded in there, I wonder how impactful that kind of conversation is going to be, because it's not, to me, a bomb.